Blake Lively in this new movie coming out. It Ends With Us.
I've heard of it.
Yes, and so this wouldn't normally be like, front page news.
Right. But
There's a little twist.
okay.
Sklenar showed up at the Vanity Fair Oscars party
Okay.
wearing this brooch, and it turns out it looked just like one that the director of the film, Justin Baldoni, wore to the movie premiere.
Interesting. What's the big deal about a brooch?
Well, that's just, the article says that Lively is actually suing Baldoni
For
for
what?
sexual harassment.
Okay.
So now fans are kind of reading into Sklenar's brooch choice
Oh, I see.
as like a sign of support for Baldoni.
I see. Yeah, so like whose side is he on kind of a thing.
Yeah, and it's got everyone talking.
Yep.
So the article, goes into all this fan reaction speculation online,
Okay.
but it also, shares Sklenar's response. He did an interview with People magazine
Okay.
and said that it was, total happenstance. He had no idea that there was even a resemblance to Baldoni's brooch, and that he was adamant about wearing the floral brooch to the party.
Adamant. That's a pretty strong word.
Right.
Sounds like he's really trying to distance himself from
Yeah.
Baldoni or any connection there.
Yeah, could this be, kind of a PR move?
It could be.
Yeah.
Celebrities are very image conscious these days.
Sure.
There's so much pressure to manage the narrative,
Yeah.
especially with something like this.
Like every move is under a microscope.
Exactly.
So this kind of, brings up an interesting point about fans, too.
Yeah.
They're always looking for these clues and hidden meanings.
Oh, for sure. It's like a game.
Yeah.
They're trying to decipher everything.
So even if Sklenar didn't mean anything by it, the public has kind of, created their own narrative.
Absolutely. They love to speculate.
And this all comes back to the power of symbols, like we were saying.
Yeah.
Especially with celebrities, like a brooch.
And roach can be a huge statement,
Right, can mean a lot.
depending on the context.
Especially in a situation like this with this lawsuit. And speaking of the lawsuit, the article doesn't really give much detail
Okay.
about Lively's allegations against Baldoni.
Uh-huh.
It just says, sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Do you think that lack of information could be significant?
It's possible. The media is often careful
Right.
with sensitive topics like this. There
Yeah.
could be legal reasons.
Sure.
Or maybe they're trying to,
To not
sensationalize
to
it.
be sensitive.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a balance between keeping the public informed,
Right.
but also respecting the, the sensitivity.
Exactly. It's a tough line to walk,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, it really is interesting how this, like, a brooch, can become like this huge thing. It's
Right.
like everyone's looking for a hidden meaning.
Yeah, we can't help it. We love symbols.
Right.
We try to find meaning in everything.
Especially when it comes to celebrities.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because they have this platform,
Right.
and we're fascinated by their lives.
Yeah. Their choices have so much weight.
Absolutely. And that's where PR comes in.
Okay.
They're always trying to manage their image,
Right.
control the narrative.
So in a case like this with the brooch, what do you think Sklenar's team is doing?
Well, I already did that interview
Right.
with people, denying any connection to Baldoni,
Yeah.
trying to shut down speculation.
Could that backfire, though?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
If it seems like he's hiding something
Right.
or being too defensive,
It's a tough balance.
yeah, they could also try to distract everyone.
Oh, okay. How would they do that?
Release some positive news,
Right.
talk about his charity work,
Oh, interesting.
highlight other projects.
So just kind of change the subject.
Exactly.
It's crazy that all this is because of a brooch.
It really shows you the power of these symbols
Yeah.
and how much people read into things.
But let's get back to the lawsuit for a minute.
Okay.
We haven't really talked about the allegations against Baldoni.
Right.
You mentioned before that the media has to be careful.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, first of all, we have to protect everyone involved.
Right.
These accusations are serious.
Yeah.
They can really damage someone's life.
Even if they're not true.
Exactly. So we have to avoid, sensationalizing it.
Okay.
And there could also be legal reasons
Oh, right.
for not sharing certain information.
So we don't want to jeopardize the case.
Exactly.
And we also don't want to, create these stereotypes about
Right.
sexual harassment.
It's important to remember that every situation is different,
Yeah.
and we have to be sensitive.
These are real people.
Absolutely.
And, innocent until proven guilty.
Right. Everyone deserves a fair hearing.
So this brings up a good question for our listeners. How do we form our own opinions
Right.
without jumping to conclusions?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a tough question. with all this instant information and social media and everything.
Right. It's hard to know what to believe sometimes.
So what advice would you give to our listeners who, want to stay informed but not get caught up in all the speculation?
I think the most important thing is to be critical.
Okay.
Don't just believe everything you read.
Right.
Look at the sources.
Yeah.
Consider different perspectives.
Okay.
And be careful of those really sensational headlines.
Right.
Especially if they're using a lot of anonymous sources.
It's like you have to be a detective almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Looking for clues.
And remember, everyone has biases, even journalists.
Right.
So, try to get your news from a variety of places.
Okay.
Look for outlets that are known for fact-checking.
Right.
And, be open to hearing different opinions.
Yeah, it's all about having those conversations. Absolutely, even if you disagree with someone.
Right.
It's good to understand their point of view.
So let's bring it back to this movie. It ends with us.
Okay.
Do you think all this controversy with Baldoni is going to affect how people see the movie?
It's hard to say, but it's definitely possible.
Okay.
These kinds of things can overshadow a project. It's hard to separate the art from the artist sometimes.
Yeah, it's too bad, because really it's the story that matters.
Yeah, ideally that's what we should focus on.
But celebrity and public image, they're so intertwined with the industry.
That's true.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
For sure.
How this affects the movie's release and everything.
It reminds us that things are never simple.
Right. There's
Yeah.
always more to the story.
Exactly.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
I agree.
We've covered so much.
Yeah, from the brooch to the media to everything.
And hopefully our listeners have a better understanding now
Hope so.
of how this all works.
The world of celebrity and PR.
Yeah. It's all very complex.
It is.
But thanks for breaking it down for us.
My pleasure.
And for everyone listening, remember to keep thinking critically.
Yes.
Don't just accept everything at face value.
Oh, that's good.
There's always more to the story.
Absolutely.
So keep digging, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.